Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome back again to another live video. And I can make mistakes in these live videos, slip of the tongue, referencing error. I'm going to make videos that are better with more cut and paste, the proper scenes later. I'm working on that. So, hey, let's just jump right into it. I'm talking about Keekee. He did a video with Momin. If I find Momin, it's over. Because I'm going to interview him, and we're going to rip through everything you've ever had to say. So you better hope I don't find him. You better hope I don't get a hold of Kirkland. Didn't you interview Kirkland, the Reverend Kirkland? You didn't tell him everything, did ya? You didn't even tell him you were going to be recording him. Because you lied to everybody. But okay, let me just go to my list here. Okay, so he says, why did Akbar see? He's going after Akbar Chaudhry. Why did Akbar Chaudhry say I remove my videos? It's a personal matter. I did it because of something personal. I'm sorry. Keekee, you're not understanding. The point is the way you arrogantly and rudely and aggressively challenge someone to a Quran competition is not normal. Normal people don't do this. You do. Now, it's interesting. We all know Mirza Ghulam Ahmad didn't know Arabic. He couldn't say the Arabic letter duad. He would say zad. He couldn't say ayin. He would say an. He couldn't say ghain. He would say gan. He couldn't say the letter kaf. He'd say kaf. These are common errors by the common Punjabi. But if you were taught Arabic as a kid, you wouldn't make these errors, right? I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I learned as a kid. You see what I mean? So I can pronounce ayin. You see what I mean? Probably not as, but I'm still better than an. And when you're doing that in a melodious voice, right, it doesn't sound the same. So Keekee doesn't understand this. And he still hasn't explained, why did Ahmadis say Qadiani Ahmadis? Why did the Qadiani side of the house concoct the story that he learned 40,000 roots in one night? Why? Where did that come from? The Lahoris didn't make that up. The Qadianis made it up. Because it was published in a book, I think 1922 or 1925. So way after he dies. Okay, then Keekee, he's bringing up personal stuff against me. I thought we were going to stop. I thought we did the truce. Nothing personal, stick to the issues. But he can't. He reneged on that immediately. He went to say he won a court case. You didn't win anything. A restraining order was not approved. Just like your restraining order against me was not approved in 2018. But I didn't go on social media and say anything. You can go check the records. I didn't say a thing about you publicly. But you did, right? Did I celebrate and say, oh, his restraining order failed? Badal Haq. And did I start quoting Quranic verses? Nah, bro. Didn't do it. I don't do that. I don't behave like that. But this is the problem with these Ahmadis. This is what these Ahmadis do. You see what I'm saying? These Ahmadis are overly competitive. And I've already said that's how Amjad Khan got his teeth knocked out. Because he couldn't take the L. Brother, you got to take an L. I've taken many. I've taken many. In life, you name it. I've taken a lot of L's. You know? And look. This is how Ahmadis feel about us. Love for all, hatred for none? I don't think so. It's all a lie. Ahmadiyya is a family business. You see what I'm saying? So, okay, let's go to question number 3. Oh, so then he says he removed all the videos because it hurt a family. It hurt someone. Bro, you've said the wildest things about me. Nothing hurts me, man. You could say whatever you want. You will have to deal with it when the time comes. You've already said everything. There's what's left to say. You see what I'm saying? You're out of control. You didn't even respect our cousin who told you to stop. right? And you reneged 6 hours later. You're just too competitive, man. You know, and it's funny because I told him, like, the last few months I was working for him, he kept saying it's my business. And I was like, I knew when I was 7. I knew what you were doing. I just didn't say anything because beggars can't be choosers. So I was a beggar. I was 11 years a slave, and I did my time. You know, Damon's a waste man. He does janitorial work, right? I cleaned 1,000 bathrooms in the U.S. Air Force. Before that, I was the janitor everywhere my dad went, whether at the Ahmadiyya place of worship or at our business. I cleaned everything thoroughly with respect. You know, the Qadiani Ahmadis from Rabwa, Keekee gave them jobs. They can't do manual labor. One of these guys almost killed himself. So Keekee brings on this guy Momin, who's unknown. No one knows who Momin is. There's no Twitter handle. Who is this guy, right? So okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay, now Keekee, your tajweed is terrible. It's below average, and you were the local president for 9 years via a fraudulent election. You didn't win the election. They did it on chanda instead. Who paid the most chanda out of the two? Keekee. That's why Keekee never missed a chanda payment, because he's setting this up. He was flying to DC, kissing up. He would go everywhere he needed to go to kiss up, and they still wouldn't give him a job. They made him, he talked his way into sports. They're like, okay, be the national or like the regional sports guy. And he was like, oh, he was so happy to be in charge. You should have went to college instead. You should have tried to get a degree in Islamic studies. They have him here in the Bay Area. Instead, he went to go be a kiss up. Well, he was a kiss up for Scott Borba too. He kissed up to this guy, and they used to be alone, touching each other. I never, what? You know, and now the guy died. So Keekee's out of luck. You know, this guy, Scott Borba, would bail him out whenever he messed up. He'd mess up every year. He's a terrible businessman. Terrible. The only reason he got into business was because he stole it from his dad in the first place. You know, and I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. See, he ends up quoting chapter 89, I think it was, where he talks about people don't want to pay and talks about the orphan. You stole from the orphans. So when the Quran talks about people stealing from the orphans, it's not just the orphans. It's stealing from people in general. And that's exactly what you did. So you got some nerve, man. Okay, does the president of the USA Jamaat, Mirza Makfour Ahmed, know about Keekee and Damon? Has he approved it? He's real mean. He's a meanie. And he's telling us all Ahmadis are alcoholics. They're not paying. So you got some explaining to do. 99.9% of Ahmadis are agnostic atheists right now, today. Oh, look. Here's what they say. Here's what these Ahmadis say. This is Ahmadiyya. So when I'm 11, 12, I see this. And I'm like, love for all, hatred for none. It's a lie. There's no way there's love for all, hatred for none. It's a marketing scheme. In fact, when the Khalifa was in Spain in 1980, that's when he invented this thing. Before that, it never existed in Ahmadiyya. He only invented it after they were declared non-Muslim, and he was telling Ahmadis to be passive-aggressive at this point, you know, to be careful, don't attack everyone like we used to. We'll get back to that, but for the time being, let's change our approach. Okay, so then he accuses us of disrespecting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Na'uzubillah. Oh my gosh! You see, they accuse us. They accuse Muslims of being atheists, but then they cry persecution. It's ironic. You can't be both. You can't say that the Pakistani government is persecuting us, calling us non-Muslim, but then you're doing it. You see what I mean? You do open takfir. When I was a kid, he used to straight up tell me these guys are kafirs. No doubt. There was no doubt. what he says publicly and privately are two entirely different things. Okay, so here are my experiences at Rabwa. And I explained, so let me talk about, before I go to Rabwa, when I was 12 years old, the local Jamaat president, his daughter has a boyfriend at the masjid. I know him. We tell them it's not cool. What are you doing? Why are you guys doing this, man? We're at the masjid, and that's your boyfriend, and you guys are sneaking off and doing this and doing that. We were just like, okay, what do? We don't tell. So a month later, this guy's approaching us and disrespecting us, saying Shahid is the worst kid at the masjid. I'm looking at Shahid like, what is this guy talking about? He himself is married to a Christian. There's a Christmas tree in his house. Why is he saying this to us? It makes no sense. Maybe because we're the sons of poor kids and we beat up some guy because he wanted to fight us. Well, these little skirmishes happen at the Ahmadi masjids all the time. They don't get reported, right? So my brother, Shahid, did things to him and was threatening the local president. I made a mistake of relating that to Keekee, and Keekee went and told. Once he went and told, I took the blame. I said, no, it was just me. He had nothing to do with it. Because that's what I do, man. Keekee wouldn't know about that. I do a lot for my cousins, my brothers, my nephews, whoever's around me. I'm a real one. Keekee is a coward. He's a weasel. He'll only do something like because he's trying to get something out of it. You see what I'm saying? For the most part. Okay, so I go to Rabwa. Check out this story. I go to Rabwa in 2003 to get married, and my cousin Atiq Shah from the I-10 on the border of Islamabad and Rawalpindi in the I-10 colony. I go to the internet cafe to check my email. There's a guy next to me watching porn. I'm like, what? I immediately leave. I go home to my grandma's brother's house, and I asked Atiq Shah, hey, he said, oh, I'm banned from Rabwa. And I'm like, why are you banned from Rabwa? He says he's had these internet porn watching rings with boys, and he got banned from Rabwa in like 2002. He goes, they're all over the place. What is this guy talking about? And I had like hung out with him in Islamabad. Oh, he smoked the whole time. I was in the Air Force. I'm like, dude, I don't touch none of that stuff. He's got it all. He's like, what do you want? I was like, I don't want anything. I want to see the city. I want to walk around Rawalpindi in Islamabad. That's all I want to do. To me, that's fun. But he's up to something else. So this is my experience in Rabwa. I went to Masjid Mubarak, Masjid Aqsa. No one's there. People don't show up for regular prayers. All right. What about the sons of Nuruddin, Keekee? Weren't they harassed? Weren't they forced out of Rabwa? So knock it off, bro. Knock it off. And then Keekee's mad that we laugh at Ahmadis. Brother, what else can we do with you guys? We just laugh at you and feel sorry for you and go pray for you. That's all we can do. And what about Fawzia Fazi and her story? He says everyone who says anything negatively about Ahmadiyya is an atheist. And we have some personal problem. He can't accept it. So this is what I'm saying. This is the guy I was growing up with. And this is how he was treating us. So, and then he says, no, Bashir said personal things about me in 2015. What about in 1991 or 92? Did I say personal things about you? But you hated me on the same level? What about 2006, 2007? When I asked you about the Lahori split, did I talk about your personal life? I didn't know about your personal life until 2015 when other family members told me. And I just asked you about it. And I realized it's true. So if you're willing to allow that to happen in your life, then what else are you allowing? That's when I started thinking, you know, and I remember this one time he told me that he beats his wife. It's like, What is he talking about? Why would he? Okay, he's joking. Is that a joke? Why would you joke about that? I just gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't mean it. But now I think about it. If she's done all these other things, maybe he's beaten her. And he has beat her. I think it's true. So it's very unfortunate that I got to bring this up, but this guy brought up some personal stuff. So again, he doesn't understand. When you bring up these personal things about me, I'm going to respond to you, right? Okay, so why did I quit Ahmadiyya? He won't accept it. I quit Ahmadiyya because the prophethood of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is a problem. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is claiming to be the only one to be called a Nabi in the entire Ummah. Technically, he also called himself Hatam al-Khulafa. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad essentially claimed to be the final prophet. And these guys, they can't accept that. They don't accept that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is the final prophet, and they don't accept that other prophets can come. And then sometimes they'll say, yeah. Like they lie about everything. So remember, they're competitive. They're not taught to authentically look at something. They just don't have that capability. All right. So, okay, Keekee, chapter 2, verse 7. Hatam Allahu ala qulubihim. It's a different Hatam than Hatam an-Nabiyyin. Admit that you made a mistake. You didn't know. Because no one's ever made that argument. I'm still waiting. Razi admitted that Ahmadis do believe that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is the second coming of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Astaghfirullah. Na'uzubillah. He admitted to it. He didn't quote Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar. And there's other verses. If you go through the 5-volume commentary by Malik Ghulam Freed, there's probably like 10 verses. I just found a few. I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the other ones. And then he told Kashif Shahzada that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is the lowest level prophet. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed to be superior to Isa al-Islam. And Isa's top 5. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed to be superior to Yusuf al-Islam. So knock it off. And then he keeps, look, in an arrogant way, he's like, Akbar, teach me the Quran then. Right? And then he admits that there could be corruption in Rabwa and Qadian. That was surprising. There is a lot of corruption. In Rabwa, they pay off the police department in Janab Nagar. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. All right. Look, he's so rude. He tells Momin, go and give a lecture. You're not here to give a lecture. Well, he's trying to explain something to you, and you can't even hear it because you're so like your brain clicks and you get rage and anger. And this is what he did in 1991, 2007, 2012, 2015. Oh, this guy's out of control. Okay, then Momin is talking about excessive chanda. You know what he means? I grew up in a house, the roof leaks. You cannot give sadaqah if your roof leaks. If there's a war, give everything. Line up yourself to join the military. Right? But Keekee's never done any of that. I have. He won't. Right? So sadaqah starts in the house. In Islam, there's no monthly tax. There's a yearly tax. Right? The Prophet ﷺ never asked for anything more. Now, during war is different. There's an army coming. You better give everything that's in your house. You better give yourself. But when they went to the Battle of Tabuk, not everyone gave everything. There were hypocrites that wouldn't go. Well, I wouldn't even have to give anything in my house. I'd grab a sword and I'd line up. Keekee, you're not strong enough. Neither is Damon or Ruzzy. They'd be in the back, maybe making food. Thank you, brother. Right? I'm the boy who would go and get a sword and line them up. Right? So I wouldn't have to give everything out of my house. I'd give it anyways. If today the U.S. got invaded by the Japanese, we'd give everything in our homes. That's what that situation is. But he doesn't know. Keekee doesn't know the difference between zakat and sadaqah. I can teach you, but he doesn't want to hear a lecture. He doesn't like to be told. Now, where does it say in the Quran that you can force a kid to work 7 days a week and never pay him? And never give him any compensation? Show me where that's at. Right? So these are the issues, Keekee. And how dare you? You didn't pay sales tax in California. Keekee sold cars, charity cars in California, under the table, didn't pay sales tax. You know how big of a crime that is? But then he's got the nerve to talk about zakat and sadaqah? How does this make any sense? So he lives a double life. It's totally ironic. He even went to Mecca illegally. Keekee, you can't go to Mecca. You're banned. You could sneak in and pretend to not be a Qadiani, but then you got to do fake salat, which I'm sure you did. So let's see what else. So Keekee didn't care if his brothers were being forced to work 7 days a week. He was like, I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to convince my dad to go do a jihad, and I'll send you some money whenever you need it. And he messed that up. He blew everything. Anyway, so all right. Okay, so again, why did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam collect money in the first place? Because he had a government. People needed to be fed. Converts to Islam needed help. This wasn't a non-profit corporation. This isn't an NGO. Those things don't even exist in the Quran, the Bible, or the Torah. There's no such thing as non-profit corporations. They only exist in capitalism, in free market society. It's the only place they exist, right? And that's because the government's refusing to do a lot of these things, and they've deregulated religion. So it opens this whole thing up. And that's how we got Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and et cetera, et cetera. So zakat and sadaqah, all these things are during war, right? Other than that, you only have to give 2.5% of the wealth that you've been able to hold on to for a year, right? And I don't want to get into the wasiyat, but I'll just I'll briefly. So then he says, poor people give in Ahmadiyya more. They don't. They don't. They don't. Knock it off. How much chanda came from Africa? They won't even tell us. They don't even know. Most of the money they get from Africa is from African governments. African governments are paying them to run these schools and these hospitals. That's how it all started. It was the British government wanting Ahmadiyya to open up a school and convert Muslims so that they would fall under colonialism and work for them. That's what it was in the first place. All right. Okay, so then Keekee, remember, he wants to borrow money and give it to people for loans. He did it. This fake Ahmadi, this guy fake converted. He refinanced his house. He got him a loan from the Jamaat for like $3,000, and the guy defaulted on it, and he paid it. Okay, this is what he does. He's bankrupt. Every year he's refinanced his tow trucks. Brother, you're living in interest. You're living an interest-based life. In Islam, this is haram. Now, in America, we need to buy a house. Okay, say you buy one house to live. Okay, we can explain that to Allah on the Day of Judgment. Say, Allah, I needed to buy a property. I'm in this system. I'm out of the Islamic umbrella of Islamic government. My parents left an Islamic government. They brought me here to an un-Islamic government. And the only way for me to get property is to pay interest. So, okay, Allah, I don't think Allah is going to have a problem with that. One time, a few times. But when you live in it, that could be a problem. You're living off of interest. You're living off a credit card. One time, did this guy, he got a credit card, and he went to a Jalsa on a credit card. Okay, and he's in mounds of debt. He doesn't care. Mounds of debt. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He's refinanced his home many times, right? Okay, and then in Pakistan, they pay zakat. Do they not? I thought Zia al-Haq instituted zakat. So there we go. So, and then he says, this guy's got the nerve to say only Ahmadis are sacrificing their lives and money for Islam in today's day and age. That's wrong. You got it. Oh my God. It just shows you the deluded mind of this guy. That's just not true, man. Ahmadis are getting extorted. That's what's happening. And young Ahmadis in the West aren't really paying at all. Right? And this might be in my later notes, but Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said that money from a prostitute he would accept. So Keekee doesn't know this. Maybe he'll look it up. He probably won't even look it up because he doesn't care. Right? All right. Okay, then in the Quran, in the Hadith, don't you have to pay your employees? I worked for my dad and you were in concert. He owes me $250,000. I sent him the bill. When he dies, the bill is hanging. So is the Jamaat going to get their wasiyat cut first? Remember, in Islam, when someone dies, their debts have to be paid first. This man has a huge debt for me that I've sent to him. It's undeniable. I counted up the hours and everything. Right? So that goes back to the wasiyat scam. In Islam, your wife and your children get your assets after you die. Now, there are exceptions, and you can give it to charity, but there are exceptions, but you have to take care of them first. Same thing with sadaqah. You have to take care of them first. Okay? And that goes back to wasiyat. He says you have to be deserving of it. What about the Ahmadis who died in the 2010 attack? Why weren't they all buried in Bura? Aren't they shaheed? You see what I mean? And they weren't. The majority of them were buried in graveyard or something like that. Okay, so these are disparities in what you say and what the theory is. Now we know that the Ahmadi Jamaat is allowed to use wasiyat money for investments. This takes us to the Panama Papers. They stored money in Panama, and they created these companies from wasiyat money. Well, wasiyat money is different than other jannahs that they get. The wasiyat money they're allowed to invest, and they invested in these companies and held this money overseas, and it's not audited because these companies were based out of Pakistan. These offshore companies, who's auditing them? All right, and I talked about that. Oh, he says if anyone does not pay chanda, they can make it up later. Well, because the Jamaat will say, oh, the Jamaat will take money for dead people. You want to pay for your parents that died 40 years ago? They'll allow it. These guys will take money any way it comes. Anyway. Okay, then he says he's not officially representing the Jamaat. Weren't you a local Jamaat president for 9 years? What's your current position in the Jamaat? Will you admit to any position in the Jamaat? Right? And then just to get asylum, you're forced to pay chanda. If you're an asylee from Pakistan, you're in Germany, Belgium, or France, or wherever. Probably not France because they're having some trouble there. Wherever you're at, you got to pay chanda. It's forced upon people. I didn't pay chanda, and they hated me. Keekee absolutely hated me for it. The hate was deep. The hate was real, you know. But he had me pay Waqar Ahmad Bajwa cash under the table. $2,500 a month. He was paying this guy for nothing. This guy wasn't doing a thing. He did not even fit into our budget. He gave another guy. You want me to give names? Yunus Mirza? Useless. He helped him start a business. The list is endless, man. The list is endless. Chris Kamari, he had me pay him cash under the table so as to avoid him paying child support. So, bro, you got to knock this off, man. Shias have it worse in Pakistan than any Ahmadi group. Christians have it worse. Hindus have it worse. But only Ahmadis get asylum, right? Because only Ahmadis got political favors, right? This is what we're talking about. Then he says, oh, Ahmadis don't get jobs. Look, 1987, there were 328 Ahmadi officers in the Pakistani military. Explain. That was just 30 years ago? 33 years ago. Ahmadis, there was a famous hockey player who was an Ahmadi. Ahmadis are left alone. It's these crazy Ahmadis who go out and do tabligh, who get in trouble. They break the law. You can't do tabligh. It's like selling pork. Okay, what about me? I couldn't confess that I left Ahmadiyya to these guys. They would have immediately fired me. I would have immediately been out of a job. He wouldn't pay me more. He would help me start a business. He wouldn't help me do a thing at all. I bought a house on my own, scraped, got it together. But for the Ahmadis, oh, he's giving away. He hired another guy, Sohail, useless. What was Sohail? Did Sohail know anything about cars? You gave him a job to sell cars. He doesn't even know what the difference between a Mustang and a Tercel. He gave him a job, helped him out. And that guy stole from him. He sold cars on the side. Ruined his business. And then Keekee got evicted. But he knows if he would have kept me, I would have made him so much money and I wouldn't have asked for anything. I never even sold cars while I was working for him. It would be a conflict of interest. But for an Ahmadi, he's going to allow it. You can do it. An Ahmadi can do it. Okay. Ahmadis got better jobs than the average Pakistani since 1947. Khurram hired this guy, Sohaib Yunus. He doesn't know what cars are. He hadn't driven a car till he came to America. Forget changing a tire. This guy almost killed himself. He dropped the car neutral on an incline. He tried to stop it, broke his arm viciously. Almost died. Never did the job again. So knock it off. You hire Ahmadis like my dad hired Ahmadis. My dad hired this guy named Carl. We didn't need him. Why did he hire him? He converted to Ahmadiyya. So he gives him a job at a loss. And he wouldn't hire other people who were deserving. Oh, and Keekee, do you know who Mirza Muzaffar Ahmad is? He got a good job with the government of Pakistan. He got a job at the World Bank. He was one of the top 3 employees at the World Bank, which shows the level of corruption in Ahmadiyya. They put Ahmadis in key positions all around the world. United Nations, World Bank, an FBI officer could be an Ahmadi. And they're all working for the interest of Ahmadis. What about the Shazam company in Pakistan? Who do they mainly hire? You see what I'm getting at? So, okay. Not everyone can drive a tow truck. It's hard work. It's not easy. I'd say there's about 40,000 Ahmadis in Pakistan. If that. And half are in Rabwa. Other than that, you won't find them anywhere. So I'm there to get married. He gives me $3,500 cash. He's giving a loan to some guy named, was it Razi? What was this guy's name? I don't remember his name. But he's trying to give this guy a loan. Why? He didn't help me. I had to pay for my own marriage, my own wedding, $20,000. I come back and I'm getting charged rent from this guy. He's giving money away, but to me, there's hate. There's no support. There's none of that. Why? Because Ahmadiyya taught him to hate his family. This is what I'm saying. And I've told my cousin this. He doesn't understand it because he was raised the opposite. You take care of your family. Like it's hard for him to fathom these things. But I tell him, The same way Keekee hates me, my dad hates me. Triple that. Why? Because I protected my other brother when these Ahmadis were all over us, disrespecting us, and we don't allow that. All right, and look, there's no jobs in Rabwa. What jobs are in Rabwa? Everyone's got to leave. Rabwa is a transit point, and they're robbing Ahmadis in Rabwa because everyone's paying rent. It's all on a lease. Rabwa is totally leased to the Mirza family until 2048, I think, or 2047. Okay, how would you treat an Ahmadi who doesn't go to Jummah? See, you hated me for not going to Jummah. I was like, why should I pray with a bunch of Kafirs? It doesn't even count. Ahmadis are not Muslim. So why should I go pray with you guys? It makes no sense to me. And he hated me for it. And Waqar Ahmad Bajwa hated me for it. And Sohail hated me for it. All these guys hated me for it. All right. Oh, and then he says Ahmadis are forced to read prayers at home. Not true, man. Ahmadis go to their masjids. I went to the. This is hilarious. He says Ahmadis can't even go to their place of worship. In Rabwa, it's good. There's no threats at all. Everyone goes to every masjid. I remember being there, and they'd say, okay, the women can't come today because something's going on, but the men are going. The men are not getting the pass. My dad took me to the Ahmadiyya place of worship in Lala Musa in either 03 or 04, and I read Jummah in the middle of the city. No one did a thing. My dad was buying people TVs, satellites, tractors, trying to get them to convert in his village of Mandib. No one touched him. So he's making things up. I had another uncle go to Pakistan for a vacation. They're vacationing in Pakistan. But then they say, oh, so it's all a fraud, man. It's all a fraud. And then he says it again. Only Ahmadis are sacrificing their lives and property. No one else. That's so bold and arrogant of you to say. That is just a sick statement. Only a sick mind could think of that. So when did Wasiyat become a monthly thing? Keekee? Razi? Damon? When? I think it was 2005. Keekee, have you did Wasiyat? What about Damon? What about Razi? Didn't Mirza Ghulam Ahmad say, if you don't do Wasiyat, you're a munafiq? You're a hypocrite? What about the first Khalifa, Nuruddin? Did he do Wasiyat? You see what I'm getting at here, man? And remember, the family of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is exempt from giving any money, actually. They lie about it. They'll say, oh, the daughter of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad gave this. She didn't give anything. So-and-so gave this. It's all a lie to pump it up. Everyone's giving. You should give. It's all a fraud, man. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad says, just by paying wasiyat is not going to get you to heaven. But then he says, everyone has to sign up or you're a hypocrite. So it's the double speak. It's the double. So then Keekee says, if an Ahmadi doesn't pay chanda, we doubt that he prays. So this goes back to how much they hated me for not giving chanda. They're like, he doesn't pray, he doesn't know the Quran, etc., etc. The defamation continues. Right? And then he talks about Qurbani. And then he talks about the New World Order. So the Mirza family in 1942 got real scared when the Japanese invaded Burma. And the second Khalifa at his Jalsa made plans for an invasion. And he was like, we're going to make a New World Order. And we want everyone's land. He said in 3 generations, we'll have everyone's land. And that's what he wanted to do. In fact, today in Qadian, there's no jobs. Ahmadis are living in poverty. I've read Nicholas Evans' work. You need to go check that out. And then Sadaqah doesn't get anyone into heaven, bro. Your debt's got to be paid first when you die. My dad owes me $250,000. Will the Ahmadiyya Jamaat force us to sell that house? We'll just have to see. And again, zakat is yearly, not monthly. Can you pay monthly? I mean, A government could pass a law. You know, how did the Mughals or the Ottomans do it? It would have to be looked up. And then, you know, the best sadaqah is to smile, right? And in Ahmadiyya, the chanda is obligatory. See, they use that word. They don't use mandatory. They use obligatory. Really, it's mandatory. That's just the words that they use. If you don't pay, they won't let you hold any position. You can't even play football or basketball in a Jamaat tournament. That's how serious they are about the money. And again, Abu Bakr gave his money during war, not during peace. And Ahmadis are not muttaqeen. Ahmadis are anti-Islam murtadeen. So now we're going to say this to you because you say it to us. So again, why am I doing this video? Because of Razi, because of Keekee, because of Damon, because of all these guys. Then Keekee quotes chapter 89, and he talks about people who don't want to pay. You stole, Keekee. I'm talking to Keekee directly. You stole from your brothers. The name of your dad's company was Khadim and Sons, but you made it to where it was never that, and you won't admit to it. This was your plan from the beginning. And then when you got married, she was like, yeah, steal it from him. Steal it from him. Because her sister ran away with a man in her childhood. Her other sister fell in love with some dude in college. Keekee broke up a marriage. My other brother, Shahi, was supposed to marry one of them. Keekee was like, no, not going to allow it. Because then he would have had to share the business with him. And then his debate tactics are out of control. Bruh, you've hated me since I was 12 years old. You're a pretender and a kiss-up. They do enforce chanda. Then they try to embarrass people and keep asking. See, that's why I would have skirmishes with Ahmadis when I was a kid. They say he didn't pay. I'd be like, with what? I myself am working for free. Stop coming up to me and saying that. If you come up to me, I'm going to smack you. And then another Ahmadi would come up to me and I'd smack him. So I'm like 14, 15 years old. These guys keep harassing me for chanda that I don't have. I don't even have a nickel to my name. And then when they get smacked, then they go cry. Makes no sense to me. Begging for chanda. And then Keekee don't want to hear it. He's like, go give a lecture somewhere else. Then he brings up the hadith of Abu Bakr, where Abu Bakr said he would want to burn down the house. This is how Keekee felt in 91. He wanted to burn my house down. This is how he felt in 2007, in 2012, in 2015. He wanted to burn everything I had. And then Keekee says he doesn't care where the Ahmadiyya Jamaat spends their money. He doesn't care. That's our problem. That's our point. So, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and one last thing. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad refused to be audited. Look it up, Keekee. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just went through my notes. 43 minutes. Keekee, I'll come to your house if you want to talk. You can come to mine. Stop being scared. If you have questions, just let me know. We can tell you the Islamic perspective. He already said he didn't know on 62.3 the Islamic perspective. He had never heard it. Well, because Google didn't exist when you were searching for Islam. Brothers and sisters, that being said, another live video, no edits. Raw, off the riff. I might have made some mistakes, slip of tongue. I'm going to make some better videos. And Razi and Damon, we got love for you brothers. Even though you're anti-Islam atheists, agnostics, it's okay. We got love for you guys. We're going to pray for you guys. With that being said, Assalamu alaikum. Peace out.